guys, and welcome back to my channel. It's been a long time since the last video about the leather jacket went online, so I hope you're still excited to watch me continue making my leather jacket. I had a lot of video footage still prepared from like last year autumn when I made the jacket and just did not come around to actually finishing the videos and such. But since this week I don't really have time at all to do anything, I only have Thursday to work, I thought that it might be the best option to just continue editing down the leather jacket project instead of, skipping another week, since next week I will take off since I am on vacation in France. But that's a different story. So in case you haven't seen the first 4 videos I already did on this project, go ahead and check out the playlist linked up here in the eye, as it probably won't make any sense to you since I'm like in the middle of stuff. I'm actually attaching the sleeves today, so that's super exciting as we have a few things going on there as well that are, a bit tricky. So super excited to show you this part of the series, and we're gonna get started right away. And where we actually left off in the 4th part of the series was before we kind of like wiggled and hammered the lapel and the collar area in place. So that's what I'm quickly doing here as well. I make sure that the ditch of the seam is only visible on the inside of the lapel, that won't be visible once worn. So that is the front piece basically where it's going to be at. And then we had this like turning point where the zipper ends, where we are going to fold the lapel. If you remember from like the 4th part, if not, just go watch that video. It just makes more sense instead of me trying to like explain what's going on here again. Okay, let's glue the inside together, or like parts of the inside. So you want to prepare first before you glue, obviously, because afterwards it's done. You can't change it anymore. That's why I made sure to like prepare everything. And you always want to glue from the side that you're going to end up looking onto. So this, for example, is going to be the inside. So we're going to flip this around and glue it from this side. So let's start. I'm also going to leave space that I'm not going to glue down, just for later purposes maybe, I don't know yet. But I'm just going to glue probably like 4 centimeters up, and starting with the first section. Obviously you want to glue down both seam allowances and probably also the inside of the seam allowances. And this can be messy, it really doesn't matter. Everything will be covered up. So let's flip this over. And here we're just going to like put glue on the inside as it's hard to reach. I'm going to start with the tip of the lapel. So actually overnight, to dry my jacket, I made sure to have it on my dress form, like in shape, in form, so that it dries accordingly. You don't want to have it laying flat on your working surface or on a hanger or even something like that. Put it on your dress form, something similar to that, so that the color and whatever else you glued down dries how it's supposed to lay in the end. So this is super important, because if you now open this up, this just will lay this way because we made it dry in this specific way. So that's why I did that. And now you're going to be fine wherever you put it, however you put it, anywhere, it will keep its shape. So that's why I did that. Continuing on, we can go ahead and make the sleeve. So I already have my other sleeve completed, and that is what it looks like. It has the zipper down here going into the cuffs, and it also has the folds right there, and that's what we're going to do for the other side as well. So one thing that you have to consider is, in order to put the zipper in, we have to attach the cuff. The cuff is obviously a closed circle once it's done, so we have to put all of the seams together before we can put the zipper in place, which is kind of annoying because it's obviously so much easier to add in the zipper when it lays down flat rather than in a tube, basically. But that's just what we have to deal with, so there's no way around that except for making a dividing line somewhere else in the cuff, which is an option. I just didn't do that because honestly I didn't think about it, so we have to work with this now, which is totally fine as it's very doable. Starting off, we are just going to put all of the seams together, roll them open, and glue them down, then stitch them down. So I'm going to start with, probably, it doesn't really matter. Let's do the back dividing seam first. Only stitch until the zipper notch you're gonna find in the middle sleeve and the back sleeve, the notch right here, only stitch until there. Every other seam you can stitch down, not this one, because we're going to do that in one go once the zipper is in right here. So I'll be back with the sleeve being a tube. So actually a quick thing that I wanted to say before I am closing the sleeve tube basically. So this is where the zipper will be, the back dividing seam. I cut into the seam allowance all the way to my stitching line right there, as you can see, because I will be folding this open like this, right? So this stays as is, but it actually, I found out while making the other sleeve, it's the easiest if you already continue gluing down the seam allowance on both sides here as well, as we're just going to place the zipper on top here and also glue it down, and then you have the zipper nicely in place and it won't move about. So that's what I'm going to do here. I just quickly wanted to mention, as that is the step you should do before you close the side seam and have the sleeve tube, as it's easiest. So now we can put the folds in order to add the cuffs, and quick check right here. The folds face away from the zipper. They face towards the front piece, which is this one. So we want the folds on this sleeve to just face exactly the opposite of the other sleeve, which is right here. So you're just going to put the notches on top of each other. You're gonna see that there is a tiny bit of overlap into the seam allowance. We're just going to fold that away so that it doesn't bother us while sewing in the zipper. And they should lay perfectly next to each other, the folds, so there should not be an overlap of the folds. Like that. And I am going to add a quick top stitch at 5mm into the seam allowance just to keep these in place, and then we can put the cuff on here. So to add the cuffs, I'm first of all going to find the middle of my cuff right here and then cut 1 centimeter towards the piece, like into the seam allowance on both sides. That is because we're going to put the cuff on here, but since we already folded the seam allowance of the slit towards the inside and glued it down, we have to do exactly the same for the cuff piece. And I only want to do that for the side that lays on the outside. It might be that we're going to do that for the inside as well, but we can still do that once it's time. So I'd rather do, you know, a little less than too much, but we can go ahead and do that on one side and then also on the other side. And now we can put this right sides together onto the hem of the sleeve. And you really want to make sure that this is precise right here, as this corner is going to be visible once we put the zipper in. Same goes to here. Make sure to add it to the actual corner here and not the fold. And the cuff should then perfectly fit onto the hem of the sleeve, like that. And then we're going to stitch that here. And after that, we're going to fold all of the seam allowances into the cuff, glue it down, and then top stitch it. I'm going to glue the seam allowances together first before I glue down the seam allowance onto the cuff, just so that that's all fixed together. And I'm also going to make sure to glue the folds. This might get a bit messy. And then one time underneath here. And I'm going to add a top stitch 5mm into the cuff. Now that that's prepared, we can grab our zipper with this thing right here pointing towards the cuff, obviously, otherwise you're not going to have what you want. And we're just simply going to glue the zipper onto the leather piece so that it looks nice. And we're gonna do that very, very carefully with a few dots on the leather. So nothing too crazy. We don't want this to spill onto the side that will be visible. We're gonna wait until it's tacky a tiny bit. And then I'm going to start with the side pointing towards the zipper thingy here. And just carefully glue it onto, like, right the corner of the zipper, until I reach this end over here. And then I'm going to mirror the placement of the dividing seam, making sure that the fold at some point is not locked in place there. And then I'll just adjust it so that everything looks symmetrical. So this is a bit off center still. So I'm just going to move this to be central, maybe like this. And now you wait until this is completely dry. And once that's dry, we can go ahead and add the missing top stitches to this whole seam. And we're going to go 5mm next to the zipper here, stopping somewhere here. And points that are important, like this dividing seam, I'm going to clip so that they don't move. And now I'm going to add the top stitches. And these are the two sleeves completely done. This is the one I just showed you right here. So that's just water, it's not glue. As you can see, you need to make sure that the corners here match up nicely. I went ahead and added a little bit more glue in here so that it doesn't pop open. And yeah, you can optionally also add this small rectangle up here. I did that because I didn't like how it looked up there in the corner. Right here, it just is perfect as it is, honestly. So here there would be no need to add a rectangle like that, but you know, I have to do it now since I did it over there already. So I'm just going to cut out a small piece right here, somewhat the same size, and then just add it onto this over there. What I did for the other sleeve was just adding glue onto the rectangle. I just distributed everywhere on the rectangle so that it also is tacky already. So now if you place this on top here, it will just stay and not move about anymore. And then I just did this crisscross and all around stitching that I'll add once this is dry, and those are the sleeves done. Before we put in the sleeves, we have to finish the epaulettes, and I have them cut out here. One side out of the expensive leather, the other side out of the cheaper leather, and I think what I'm going to do is just place them right on top of each other. I have seam allowance on these two, just because I am going to cut them to size once they're glued together in order to have like a perfect edge everywhere. So that's what I'm going to do here. now I can go ahead and cut them to size to fit into this pattern piece. The only seam allowance that I'm not going to cut off is right here at the short edge, as this will be put into the sleeve seam, so no need for that. And I think I'll just go from like edge to edge, so I'll go 1 centimeter in here. And then I know that the pieces are going to end up being 3 centimeter, so that's what I'll measure from that corner here that I just cut off. And another thing, I quickly did a top stitch right here and then added the closure up here. Nothing too crazy. Just make sure to top stitch first and then add this, otherwise you're gonna have trouble sewing around here. And another thing that we have to prepare is the sleeve placket, or that's what it's called, which we have to prepare in folding it in half and then also top stitching it, because that's gonna sit on the shoulder, like the sleeve cap seam, I guess. So I'm just going to, I don't know if I should even like roll it down. I think I can just glue it in place and then roll it. Just thinking if this is smart. I don't think that it is actually, because you need to close the small sides on either side first. Now that I have the glue already in place, that's a bit tricky now. But I think in order to save my sewing machine from like glue spots and everything, I'll just try to leave the sides open for now and just put this together. So like that, and I'll leave this open. And now I'm going to quickly try to like put these together, and obviously do this for this one first, so don't glue it yet. Put the small side together first, open it up, glue it down, and then fold the whole thing in half and glue it down. So I saved it. Thank God. And I'm going to add top stitches starting from 5 millimeters from the folded corner, working my way over there. I have 1 centimeter seam allowance on here, so I probably will stop after the second row, but I'll see where I go. Okay, and now we can put all of the pieces together. Basically, what we're gonna start with is putting the epaulette right sides onto the middle sleeve, right on top of the shoulder point. And this piece gets also put onto the sleeve with the wrong side onto the right side of the piece. I'm going to match up the side seam, and then I'm just going to work all the way around. And there should be notches everywhere, so we just match these up. And I'm going to stitch into the seam allowance to fuse all of these pieces together, so at like 5 millimeters here. And these are the two sleeves that we're going to end up with, and we need the other part of the closure on the jacket. And since the since the side seam of the jacket is still open, now is the easiest time to actually add the other pieces into place. So they're going to be added right on the shoulder seam here. And where's my pattern piece? I'm just quickly going to mark that with a needle into the seam so that I can actually poke it through. And now I can measure that to copy it to the other side. So it's 17 centimeters from the armhole. I'm quickly going to check if that distance is good and correct by just putting this onto here and then folding it here. So as you can see, there is going to be a little bit of overhang, which is exactly what I want. So this distance seems to be great. So we can go ahead and add the closure there. Speaking of side seams, now that we have the closures in at the shoulders, we can finally go ahead and close the side seam of the jacket, and then we can attach the sleeves to it. So I'm going to match up all of the seams right here, especially the belt seam here, and then the underarm seam. And we're also going to roll this open, glue it down, and top stitch it. And it's finally time to put the sleeves onto the jacket. So this is pretty simple, just putting right sides together, matching up all of the notches here and sewing it together, and then we already have a complete jacket. So only the lining and the hem facing is missing, and the belt. Don't forget about the belt. So as you can see here, this is very, very thick. Like this is a centimeter probably already. So I'm going to do that on my leather machine, because I doubt that my normal machine, even with the 110 size needle, will handle it too well, and I don't want to break it. So that's what I will be doing here as well. Like this is bulky. But other than that, this should be rather easy, as it just fits together perfectly like that. And let's sew these together, and the other sleeve as well. And to put the hem facing onto the jacket now, we're going to do one specific thing. So we have the front facing on the inside here. We're going to fold it towards the outside. And since we didn't glue the seam allowance down here, this is still free to go anywhere, because this will be at some point folded onto the front piece and then stitched down here. But before we do that, to have one continuous line, we're going to put right sides together of the hem facing and the front facing. And you're gonna find the notch right here, which marks the hem facing, and as we have seam allowance on it, it is 1 centimeter further than that notch. So be mindful about that. And now that that's done, we're going to fold the front facing all the way over, and then we can start matching up all of the seams. And since the lining is going on top here, the seam allowance here, I won't open it up, but I will fold it towards the side seam basically, because that's where it's going to sit in the very end. And here the zipper is there, so we're going to zip it up a tiny bit, and now we can sew this. Make sure to also match up the center front notch right here, because the outside, so the front piece, has a little bit more volume than the facing in order to have a nice rolled effect right here. So make sure to have these match up and then stretch it while sewing to ease in the addition there. Same goes to here on the other side. And now we can sew the complete hem in one go. And let's turn this over. Actually, before that, let's cut away the corners. Also cut towards the seam allowance at the notch right here in the front facing on both sides, just for once putting the lining on. And now we can turn this right sides out. And now we can prepare the seam again, as we did with the lapel seam and the collar seam and so on. We're going to roll the hem, making sure that the ditch of the seam is only visible on the facing side. And then we can already glue this down, the seam right here, and start with the lining. And that's it already for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you're still interested in this series. I know I got a few comments, not a lot, but a few comments about when or whether I'm even continuing this series. And yes, I am still planning on continuing the series or finishing the series, and then also uploading the pattern to my shop. The only thing that's holding me back at the moment, obviously, apart from editing down the video footage that I still have, is writing the sewing instructions, because they're going to be massive. I mean, it's the 5th part already. We're not done yet. Imagine the sewing instructions this pattern comes along with. So that's what I'm not ready to deal with at the moment. That's why I'm kind of like procrastinating on this series. But anyways, I hope you still enjoyed. And if you're interested in future episodes on this project, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you'll get notified every time that I post. I post on Sundays, so you can keep an eye out for that. Apart from next Sunday, as I already mentioned, I will be on vacation there. But if you're interested in more private stuff, then you can go check out my social media, especially my Instagram. I post a lot of reels all around my projects and like small tips and tricks, so that is something that you can check out as well. And then obviously my stories on more private things. All of the other stuff is also linked down in the description below. The most direct way to support me and keep videos just like this one coming is to head over to my Etsy store, where you will find so many patterns. Not this one yet, because it's not done, but all the other things that I am uploading on my channel. Every video that I post has a pattern to go with. So if you find anything interesting there, you can check it out over on my Etsy store and support me that way, and get also a really nice, cute pattern that you can transform into something special. A big thanks to my channel members as well. You can get exclusive benefits through the link in the description below, or if you just click join. So thank you so much for your continuous support, and obviously for hitting 100,000 subscribers. I'm blown away. That is insane. Thank you so much for so many of you guys. I never thought that this was possible and that we're gonna reach that, so thank you so much. And yeah, I think that's it, and we're gonna see each other in 2 weeks' time. Bye guys!